Iowa Debris and Jennifer Lopez on talent.
Hello, my makers. Welcome back to the Cake Radio Show. I'm the CakeDive, and I hope y'all are doing well because today we are going to be continuing Vlogsmas and digging into my Apple replay for the year of 2024. Y'all, I'm running out of ideas for what to talk about for these vlogs since I committed to 25 days. We've made a day 4. Hey, if y'all got any ideas of what y'all want to hear from me, let me know in the comments below. Cause it's getting this. We like 4 days in. I'm already kind of running out of ideas. Um, but I want to talk about my Apple Music replay. For those who don't know, everybody like everybody online be trying to act like the streets is hot and is waiting for Spotify Wrapped, but everybody's been complaining because Spotify Wrap ain't dropped yet. And why do I think that is? I think it's because they're gonna be blending AI. I think they're gonna be trying to use AI in it, and that's not cute. And I think they try to figure it out and really perfect that AI, that artificial intelligence for it. I think that's why it's taking so long. Because usually Spotify Wrap be dropping like end of November or like early December. Like this is kind of the longest it's taken for them to drop a Spotify Wrapped. So for Apple to really get the jump on them and just drop the post is kind of like they kind of ate that up. Like it's kind of cunty, not dare I say. Um, that being said, like I'm gonna be brave and post my little Apple replay because like every time Apple be dropping the Apple replay, no, cause like let's have a conversation. The girls be cutting up over Apple Music, like the streets, and I think this is just like, well, actually, it's not even an online thing. Like it seemed to be online, and some of the people that I be interacting with, Spotify really got a hold on the people, and it's really interesting because y'all be complaining about Spotify, but like, and like y'all also got iPhones, but y'all ain't got Apple Music. And like, yeah, I be talking about my friends and like interacting with them. When I switched over to Apple Music, because I'm not dissing Spotify by any means, because I used to have Spotify. When I switched over to Apple Music, my friends immediately got confused. And one is because I got an Android, no shade. But two, it's also just because like they was just like, you switched to Apple Music? Like it's like for some reason Apple Music had some sort of like they had some sort of issue with Apple Music. I ain't know why that was because y'all got iPhones. Like you would think someone with an iPhone who really stand on being on having an iPhone and for like a good portion of the time was trying to clown you for having an Android would have everything Apple, like Apple Music, Apple this, Apple that, the iPhone, AirPods, everything, the Apple Watch, everything. Like you would think they would really be in the ecosystem in the code, but like for some reason, I'm really shocked that like a lot of the iPhone baddies don't be using Apple Music. Like y'all, let me if you had an iPhone baddie and you don't use Apple Music, let me know why in the comments. Cause like I really don't know. They couldn't give me an explanation for that. Um, but I believe end of last year, I switched over to Apple Music, and the reason behind that was because they got me because what for those who have been following the podcast, y'all know that I'm a college student. And for those college students who know, y'all know that Apple Music be giving like they be giving a lot of trials. And Apple specifically just in general will give a lot of trials out to, especially to students. And I believe Target gave out this deal in which it was like they partnered with Apple in which you can get like 6 months. It was like 6 months of Apple Music for free, and it also came and it was for students, and it also came with Apple TV Plus bundled in. And for me, like I love watching movies, I love watching TV, and I never had Apple TV Plus before. And one of my friends, shout out to Jeannie, also like had Apple Music, I was like, for like that. And one of the biggest reasons for me switching wasn't just because of the deals, also because like Spotify was getting a little bit expensive for me. They kept moving the price up, and I was just like, I'm just getting Spotify, and I also had the student plan as well, and I was just like, the benefits that you get for being a student was also just like stuff that like didn't really matter for me, because like for the one of the reasons why I stuck with Spotify as a student, like I had Spotify before, but once I like entered college and started using the student benefits, one of the reasons why I was staying was because like you like, I know the benefits was like you get Spotify, but you also get like Hulu for free. You also get Showtime for free. And I already have Hulu with like my family. I'm a mooch, deal with it. But but one of the reasons I didn't have Showtime, and I watched Showtime, and this is back in the era when like Z-Way was on, and like different little shows and movies that I was trying to watch would be on Showtime, but not really anywhere else just yet. So I was like, okay, like period, like y'all got Showtime, I want to use Showtime, so like I'll use it. And that was kind of what was keeping me going until Paramount decided to swap and merge with, like they merged Paramount Plus with Showtime, and they just said instead of like giving you Paramount Plus with Showtime or giving you even just regular Paramount Plus, they was just like, oh, like we're just gonna remove it altogether. So like Spotify, we raising the price and we're removing a benefit for students. And I was just like, I mean, I already have Hulu, so I'm not gonna use it. I'm not gonna use this Hulu benefit that you get from me. So it's just kind of like, what's the point? And I was talking to Jeannie, and she was just, and I was like originally thinking about moving the Title, because like for the longest time I was hearing that Title like was known for really good sound, and she put me on game, and she's used Title, she's also used Apple Music and Spotify for her, and she actually recommended Apple Music before because of the sound quality. And I was like, oh, like I'll think about it, and the price as is was reasonable. And then I also remember that Apple had the promos. So I'm like, let me just switch and try it. And I haven't, once I switched, I haven't thought about it since. Like Apple Music has really been a really good service. I really enjoy the sound quality. I really enjoy the aesthetic of the platform as well. It's really clean and crisp. And I also think that like Apple and Spotify kind of designed their apps around like different people, and like different people in terms of how they listen to music. And I think that Apple Music definitely is like the platform for me, because with Spotify, they definitely care a lot more about like playlists and playlisting and like that type of stuff. Like I know a lot of my like friends who use Spotify and stuff like that will they'll listen to their stuff through like their playlist or through um the little like radio thing. Um Even though some people, including some of my friends, have complained that they're like starting to put more and more AI in the platform, a little bit rough that that's happening. Whereas with Apple Music, the platform, at least how I feel about it, is designed more around the like bodies of work, like albums. Like you still have playlists and you still have the radio functions of Apple, and Apple actually has better radio functions because instead of it being like an AI generated and like kind of an AI generated type thing with the radio DJ, they actually have radio stations because they acquired Beats, and they have like Apple Music and Beats Radio One and all those different types of things. And the outside of that, but the platform is more so like designed for you to actually like listen to like songs individually or listen to bodies of work on their own. You can create playlists, but the platform isn't really designed for that. It puts a little bit more focus on like the actual projects individually. And I actually appreciate that, because the way that I listen to music, I really don't do playlists. The only playlist that I really did, both during my time on Spotify and my time now on Apple Music, is the like my gym playlist. Like if I really need to get in the gym and really be in a vibe, like I have a gym playlist. But outside of that, like I will go ahead and just listen to specific bodies of work. I like go to the album and listen to the album in full. Or if I want to listen to specific songs, I'm gonna go through and select those songs and add to the queue, and then go ahead and add other songs. Like I really don't be doing a playlist. Like you kind of got to hold me at gunpoint to do a playlist. But that's why I've kind of enjoyed Apple as a platform. And I also really enjoyed how um the Apple Music raps, or like I keep saying raps because like Spotify, but like the Apple Music replays have been, because they're really smooth and really straightforward to the point, and it's very similar to like what Spotify does, because obviously Spotify kind of pioneered the concept. Shout out to the person who invented it, and like that Spotify took it from and didn't really give credit from. Shout out to you. Um, and obviously it's created this really big thing. But I think I also really like the Apple Music sort of version of replay, because it's very no nonsense. Like I feel like nowadays Apple Music is, well, not Apple Music, Spotify tries fighting for relevancy and try keeping that the lock on with Wrapped, because they really want people to like, it's Wrapped is such a big important thing in like the pop culture and like online zeitgeist, because everyone's talking about it, that they want to keep bringing in like things for people to use as discussion pieces. Like I remember last year Spotify Wrapped, which was the last year I was using Spotify, was doing like the cities thing, and people were talking about like, oh, which city you're in. um which, if you really think about it, it's just weird as hell, because like, well, it's fun to like talk about that type of stuff. Like at the end of the season, that we're looking at Spotify Wrapped, is to see like who was their most streamed artist, who's on the list for their most streamed artist of the year, what was their most streamed album, what's their favorite genre. Like they really want to get into that, and I feel like Apple Music Replay does it no nonsense. It's like, oh, like here's this, that, and the third, and that's that. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. But I've been talking for too long about the journey. Let's actually dig into the music, and like my Spotify, my girl, not Spotify, girl, my Apple Music Replay. Um, so digging into the the amount of time I've listened on Apple Music has been 55,319 minutes. I've listened to around 484 artists throughout the year, and my most streamed artist, which if you've been listening to the Cake Radio podcast, is probably not a shocker, is Normani. My first play of Normani was on January 2nd for any songs that I've listened from her. And I've listened to her and her music for a total of 6,781 minutes. When it comes to the breakdown of like who are my most listened to artists month to month, January had Renee Rapp, February had Megan Thee Stallion, March had Ariana Grande, April had Beyonce, May had Dua Lipa, June had Normani, July had Normani, August had Chloe, September had Lotto, October had Chloe, and November has Flo. Which really makes sense, because I remember January was like a time in which I was really getting into Renee Rapp, because the Mean Girls film was coming out. I was getting into like the Max series, College Life, the Sex Lives of College Girls, and I was getting into Renee Rapp's music because I was listening to her in interviews, and I was hearing snippets of the songs, and I'm like, ooh, like this is cute. And I also, what really got me into her was was it Pretty Hurts, the remix with Coco Jones. That's what got me into her, and I've listened to her music. I actually own the vinyl of Snow Angel now, because I really enjoyed the music. I also saw her at Lollapalooza this year. Um, so just kind of shows you how the direction of things went. February had Megan Thee Stallion, which really makes sense, because like, his and the eventually like the self-titled album coming out later in the year, but like that happened. But also the fact that like I like this year, one of my goals, that it wasn't really a goal, but one of my things that I kind of like silently did, was really pull away from listening to Nicki Minaj, because I've talked about this before, but I've talked about how I never talked about it in full detail. Like I've talked about like my disdain and annoyance with Nicki Minaj as an artist nowadays, but I never talked about like, and I also talked about the fact that I used to be a fan, I used to listen to her, and that my friends used to call me a barb, but I never got into like my reasoning from why I've like split from like Gag City and Barbdom. For me, like for the I did have a few friends who would like really sit down and like, we all talk about music. And as you know, through this podcast, I really enjoy talking about music. And they would sit down, we would talk about different artists. And when Nicki Minaj would come up, they would actually like generally ask me, like, oh, like, so how do you feel personally about these different things? And the biggest things that they would talk about would be like the fact that Nikki is dating, her current husband, and the things that he's done and the ways that she has supported him, and also just the ways that she's been moving with like the rap beefs with like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. And for me, I was just kind of like, I guess, disillusioned. I was more than willing at that time to kind of not necessarily defend it, because throughout the years I could never defend the fact that her husband was doing the things that he was doing and that she was just rocking with it. But for me, I for the longest time I felt like I guess I like the nostalgia and like the strength of her career for up to a certain point to really be like, oh, but like she makes good music, kind of like what I've said before on the podcast, in which for a lot of people, there can be people and like celebrities who can do really horrendous things, but people are willing to forgive them because of the fact that they have talent. And I feel like I was kind of one of those people up to a certain point, um, with Nicki Minaj. And I think the two big things outside of the husband that led me to really decide, like, okay, I'm pulling away from her. Like, I'm not really going to be supporting her like that anymore. Not even, well, I started pulling back as like the Pink Friday 2 rollout happened, but for the final decision as to why I just decided was like, okay, enough is enough, I'm not supporting her and streaming her anymore. One was how she was treating Megan Thee Stallion, and two was Pink Friday 2. The big thing with Megan Thee Stallion was that she would like, for, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, the biggest thing that like I noticed as like someone who was in circles with Barb's and like looking and like seeing tweets and stuff from Barb's was that the Barb's weren't really angry at Megan for anything genuine outside of like, I feel like the Barb's need to be honest with the fact that like Megan hasn't done anything wrong, at least to Nikki. There hasn't been any like weird issues or anything that has been happening between the two of them. Like Megan has kept it very honest and real that like for the longest time, like she had a lot of love for Nikki and that she really wanted to work with her, but she also wanted to work with Cardi B, and that she hoped to work with both. She didn't have any issues with either of them, and she didn't want to be on the rap beef shit. But it's the fact that she ended up collaborating with Cardi B and had one of her biggest hits with WAP led Nikki to really like go off the rails and like really start coming for her, and the Barb's just really like slick on her as well. That like there's literally like tweets and videos in which it is like Megan, like before WAP coming out, Megan literally being like, oh, like people asking Megan like, oh, like are you and Nikki still cool? And Megan being like, yeah, like why wouldn't I be? And like Nikki still giving Megan praise up until the release, like literally hours before the release of WAP. So I feel like any of the Barbs or any of like Nikki trying to make this seem like anything bigger than like WAP is like they're like lying to themselves. They're being dishonest and disingenuous. Um, and just the continuous ways in which like she would post and like sneak diss and like sub Megan without like saying her name, even though everyone, even Barb's, would very clearly know that it's about Megan, was very weird. Like with Cardi, it was kind of like I guess my cognitive distance was kind of established because like the rap beef should have been wrapped up. Like nobody really cares about the Cardi and Megan beef anymore outside of like them and the stands. But when it came to like Megan, like it was very odd when like Megan would release a song and like Nicki would post a photo on Twitter in which it like very much clearly suggesting that she's listened to it or like and that she doesn't like it, or like the performance of the song wasn't up to stuff for the Barbs because like for some reason Megan has to be on this ridiculous standard where she has to debut at number one, she has to have number one album, she has to do this, that, and the third. And she'll do a string of tweets being like, "Oh, like I'm still number one" type stuff, or or she'll like tweets alluding to such. Um, and the biggest no nos for me was like the fact that like when Cobra and stuff came out, Nicki and the Barbs proceeded to make fun of Megan when this was a track that was very personal. It was her like pouring everything out and being really honest that like, hey, like this shit fucked me up and like this doesn't need like this, why is this happening to me type thing. And like it's the fact that like you are not showing grace, even though like if you're the queen of rap, you should show grace to your sons. If she really is a son, says everything I need to know. And it was also just the fact that like even with like the his stuff, when his came out, like she was liking tweets and like saying things like making fun of Megan's late mother and stuff like that. Like that is crazy. But if anyone said anything like that to you about your father or about like your like again with the verse from his in which like Megan never named Nicki or her husband, but she clearly jumped up and was like, "Oh, like you're saying these things about my family. Like I feel very personally about this." The moment someone does anything like that to you, suddenly all bets are off. Suddenly you're foaming at the mouth doing crack and coke, and it's just kind of like you're not mentioning the same energy, sweetie. Like if you want your sons to be graceful to you, if you want the people that you're beefing with for no reason to be graceful to you, you have to be graceful to them back. But she clearly didn't understand that. And then I was like, you know what? Like at some point I was just like, I'm off this, but we're gonna listen to Pink Friday 2 and see what it is. And that's probably gonna be the last album I listen to from her. Um, I listened to the album and I thought it was god awful. Like the album was atrocious, and the fact that her and the Barbs are just kind of pretending like this is like a really successful album, like this is a really good album, outside of them like pushing and spending all of their checks to try to push the album is crazy. Like it's an awful album. There's a few good songs off that, and even then I'm being generous. And I was kind of like I wish I could have done like a live reaction or something listening to your album because you could have. I wish friends and like the public could have seen how legitimately I got pissed off with the album. So I decided, hey, we listened to the album, we did everything, I did everything I could. I'm not listening to this lady no more. Like we're disinvesting. And I already listened to Megan Thee Stallion as an artist because I really liked her music. I also really liked her as a celebrity. She presents herself with a really good brand and a really good personality, so like it's very easy to like. Um and respect. So I was just like, you know what? Like, let's lean more into the artist that I'm already listening to. Like, we don't have to just switch up and put a new artist in play. Let's just listen more to the artist that I've been streaming. And that's what I did. So like, Megan in February, Ariana Grande in March because she was putting out like she's doing the Eternal Sunshine rollout with like Yes and everything like that. And the album was great. I really enjoyed the album. Beyonce, obviously, with Cowboy Carter and the singles and stuff like that came out, like I was living it. And again, like for a lot of people, if you know me personally, I really enjoy the Cowboy Carter album. I also own that on vinyl. Circling back to Megan, I actually own Megan Act 1 and Act 2 on CD with the signed copy, by the way. Um, then May we had Dua Lipa. We had, because she released what was it? What's the damn album called? Radical Optimism. Yes. And I honestly liked the album. I know a lot of people was cutting up and saying that was her flop album, even though it's ended on like is wrapping up on like year end high performing list for like best performing or like best selling albums and stuff like that. So I don't know how the streets are feeling about that, but I enjoyed the album system. June and July, obviously, because Normani was that girl and Dopamine was coming out. Y'all know me, I was running up Dopamine, I was defending Dopamine and Normani. Y'all can check the Dopamine saga on the Cake Radio show if y'all really want to see how I was feeling during that journey. I also have a tattoo. I actually got a tattoo based on the album. If you know, you know. It was that serious for me. August had Chloe because she was doing, you know, the rollout and stuff for she was like continuing the rollout for what would eventually be Trouble in Paradise and listening to songs like Boy Bye and Fuck Your Status kind of when they came out. September had Lotto, which was kind of surprising to me because I really wasn't big on Lotto, but I started getting more into her because, like, I don't know, like the music's cute. One of my favorite songs that she has ever made was Muwab. So like I've been kind of like Lotto, but like not really. I started really leaning into her once we got to her recent album, Sugar Honey Iced Tea. Like I thought that was a good album. I really enjoyed that from her. So like I was bumping Lotto in September. Chloe came back in October because of Trouble in Paradise releasing, and I still think it's one of the best R&B albums that we got this year. I think Normani, Chloe, and Flo both really took it. And then Flo obviously for November. And yeah, that was the year with the exception of December. I don't know who's gonna be on top. It might be Flo still, because I'm still bumping the album, but I'm also listening to everybody else. With Normani, I made it to the top 500 listeners, and I also made it to the top 500 listeners for Chloe. That's not a shocker for me because last year was Spotify Wrapped, and with Apple Music Replay because I had both last year. I ended up on the top list, and they both ended up in like as like my Chloe ended up as my highest streamed last year, so I'm not shocked at all that that was the case. Fuck Your Status FYS by Chloe was my number one most streamed song of the year. I played 2,226 songs this year up to November. And FYS was first played February 29th, and I've listened to the track over 426 times. Yeah, like it's getting a little crazy. Because one thing about me, I will listen to, like, if I'm really feeling the song, like, I'm gonna go back and re-listen to it. I'll go back to listen to Bodies of Work. I have them on my playlist and stuff like that. It'll pop up on my queue. So like, hey. And listened to over 336 albums. And Dopamine, of course, was number one most streamed album, 4,254 minutes total. And I played it first on June 13th. And as you probably could guess, my top listened genre was pop. And that was just kind of like that was my replay. That was my replay. So what am I like? I wonder what y'all think about the replay. Don't judge me too much because I know that the records and the totals and stuff sound crazy, but we was streaming it. We were streaming it for like my top artists. Top five was for most streams was Normani, Chloe, Megan, Beyonce, and then Ariana Grande. Top five songs was FYS, 159 featuring Ghana, Boa by Megan Thee Stallion, Candy Paint, and Still by Normani. Top five albums was Dopamine, Trouble in Paradise, Cowboy Carter, Eternal Sunshine, and Tyler's debut album. And top five genres pop, R&B and soul, hip hop, rap, and country because of Cowboy Carter. And yeah, like that is pretty much it. I could give you my rundown of like my top songs by each month as well. January was Thoughts by Money Long featuring Sukiana. February was To Die For by Addison Rae featuring Charlie XCX. March was Fuck Your Status by Chloe. April was 159 featuring Ghana. May was Boa by Megan Thee Stallion. June was Candy Paint with Normani. July was Spin from featuring Victoria Monet by Megan Thee Stallion off the self-titled track. That's still one of my favorite songs off the album. August was the intro track for Chloe's Trouble in Paradise, So All I Got, Free Fallin'. September was the intro for Winter's Diary by Tink, because I was getting into that album. October was Shake by Tyla. That was for Tyla Plus, the deluxe, which is still one of my favorite tracks that she's put out. And November was Soft, featuring Chloe and Halle from Flo's unlocked version of X's All Areas. Like, this tells you a lot about me and my most streamed albums. Oh, top albums by month also. Let me wrap this up. January was the Color Purple soundtrack for the musical adaptation that came out last year, because I'm low-key a theater kid, and I also really enjoyed that film. And that was like one of my top albums for December, I think, and that spilled into January. February was Beyonce's self-titled album. March was Eternal Sunshine. April was Cowboy Carter. May was Radical Optimism. June was Dopamine. July was Dopamine. August was Trouble in Paradise. September was Sugar Honey Iced Tea. October was Trouble in Paradise again. And then November was Access All Areas. So that was my Apple Music replay. Again, let me know what your top songs, your top albums, your top streamed artists were in the comments below. It doesn't matter if you have Apple, doesn't matter if you have Spotify, doesn't matter if you even have YouTube Music. Let me know who your top faves were in the comments below. Hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you get episodes before anybody else. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platforms, we're pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow, turn on your notifications, and give the show a good rating because it helps. That's been it for me. I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.